I'm Roby Brock. Welcome to this edition of Talk Business and Politics. On this week's agenda, as a fiscal session begins, the fate of Arkansas Works could be in the balance, especially in the Arkansas Senate, where several yes votes have disappeared. What else should we be focusing on related to the state's budget, and could a special session be in the future? The primary season heats up, Congress shuts down again and reopens again, plus governing in the age of Donald Trump. How challenging is it? Governor Asa Hutchinson is our guest for this next half hour. Stick around as we explore answers to those questions and much more.
This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
And welcome to the program. Glad to have you with us. I'm Roby Brock. We are joined today by Governor Asa Hutchinson. He is running for re-election in 2018, and I'm giving you the whole show today, which I would do with any other governor's candidate this year that comes back on the show after this.
Well, I'm glad to have the opportunity to be here, and thanks for the whole show.
We got a lot to talk about. So let's begin with policy first, and then let's go politics. We've got the fiscal session starting on Monday. The drama is going to be around whether or not the votes are there for the Arkansas Works program. Policy first. You're waiting on a waiver still from the feds about what you want to do differently with the Medicaid expansion program. Kentucky and Indiana have theirs. When's Arkansas going to get theirs? What's the holdup?
Well, hopefully we'll be next. The Trump administration put out the guidance to approve a work requirement as a waiver. And so we're following that guidance, and with that guidance we shouldn't be any controversy to obtain the waiver. It's just a matter of all the processes. So it's not done until it's done, but I'm very optimistic about getting that waiver, and I think that's a reform that the General Assembly wanted and supported and believe that that's necessary to control the cost and growth of the program, but also to move people to work and responsibility. And so we're looking forward to that, and I think that'll be helpful.
Do you expect any surprises from the feds on this in terms of, do you think they may ask you to change something else that has not been out there publicly yet?
I don't believe so. It's a little bit different than some of the other waivers that was granted in Kentucky and Indiana. It has a different kind of lockout period, so they're taking a close look at that. And what that means is that if someone doesn't qualify or they don't fulfill the work requirement, then how long are they out of the program before they can come back in? And so our lockout period is through the end of the year. So that's different than what it was in Indiana and Kentucky. That was a shorter period. It's not designed to be punitive. It's designed to move people to work and responsibility and to get more training. When you're at a low unemployment rate, we need more people working. So I think it's the right policy. I believe it'll be approved, but I know they're looking at it.
All right, so the politics of this is you got to have a 75% threshold to get the DHS budget approved, of which Arkansas Works will be folded into, I guess, in theory. I don't have to do the math for you. You're down a few yes votes in the Arkansas Senate. Where are those votes going to come from?
Well, it is a tight environment just because you had 3 people that's no longer in the Senate that has a vote, and they won't be filled in time. And so where those votes come from, obviously that would mean that people that previously voted no 1 or more times in the past would have to change their vote to yes. But we've been working very diligently with them. They've asked a lot of very good questions. They've met consistently with our Medicaid folks at DHS and Cindy Gillespie, and we're trying to answer all the questions. And when all those questions are answered, I hope that they'll be yes votes.
I will go ahead and ask if you want to name some names, but I got a feeling I'm not going to get any answers from you on those no votes that you're working. But are you confident that they will change their votes on this? Do you think that the changes you're putting in place are going to be enough to persuade them to change their minds?
I do, but let me emphasize it's really not them changing a consistently held position. It's a matter of them looking at this and saying the reforms that we've always advocated for are now in place, and so they would feel comfortable in supporting it based upon that. The Medicaid waiver is a part of it, but it's also what we were able to do last year in tightening up our review process to make sure people who are not eligible for it from an income standpoint are not receiving benefits. And we rolled 117,000 people off both traditional Medicaid and the expanded Medicaid just in 2017. And so that kind of reform gives people confidence that we're watching the dollars of it, and that what is intended to be a help to people in health care trying to struggle up the economic ladder that it's going to benefit those that need it the most.
And there has been, you've had some time too for some of the other reforms that you've asked for to come in to fuller effect. And I think there was a report out about a week ago that showed that there are some savings being produced from some of those reforms as well. That'll obviously would probably be part of the argument as well.
Sure. There's been a reduction of the growth that we thought was going to happen, which means savings. We're on target to accomplish the savings the legislature dictated. And I'll also say that even with the work referral requirement, not a mandatory issue, but a weak work referral requirement in place, 4,000 people have moved from Medicaid into referring for more training. They've received that training, they've got jobs. That's a significant positive impact of some of the reforms we've done.
All right, last question for you on the fiscal session. Anything else that is of highest priority to you in the fiscal session? We've just talked about Arkansas Works, but I know that there's other things as well.
Well, there are, and this is a very significant session in my judgment, even though I hope it is quick and efficient. It's significant because we are constraining the state budget in order to create a $64 million surplus. Part of it goes to highway, part of it's in restricted funds for future tax relief or for economic downturns. This is significant, and that's what makes it very important to have that kind of budget approved.
All right, I'm going to take a quick commercial break and come back with more with Governor Asa Hutchinson. There's plenty of controversies not related to the fiscal session. We're going to cover those topics with the governor when we come back.
When was the last time you felt free? It's time to uncover that feeling again with the compassion of a cross and shield, accepted by over 90% of doctors and specialists, and the power of a card that opens doors in all 50 states, giving you the freedom to love, to dream, to dance like no one is watching. Arkansas Blue Cross and Blue Shield. Live fearless.
Arkansas Electric Cooperative Corporation provides electric energy across 2/3 of Arkansas. This is an exciting time in our energy history, with incredible progress being made in renewable energy and storage technologies. As our energy portfolio continues to diversify, we'll maintain an all-the-above strategy to provide reliable and affordable electricity. Ever since the first light bulbs were placed in our members' homes, the electric cooperatives have been the solutions provider for our members, and we want to continue that well into the future.
A farmer understands the needs of every season, and so do Farm Bureau members. When Arkansas families needed electricity, our members brought it. Reliable roads, our members built them. Agricultural education, our members provided. Today's members may not live on a farm, but their connections are as close as ever. So when that difficult season comes, no member has to face it alone. For every season, Arkansas Farm Bureau. Join today.
When did too big to fail replace too smart to fail? When did trend overtake truth? When did putting clients first stop being second nature? For us, never.
You can't take a risk in any investment that if it goes wrong and you lose it all, that you endanger the ability of the firm to survive. And that's really what Wall Street forgot.
So when do you want to learn more about Stephens, one of the country's most successful investment banking firms?
Welcome back to the program. I'm Roby Brockwell with Governor Asa Hutchinson. Governor, let's turn our attention to some other matters of state business, and I would say let's go beyond the fiscal session. There are a lot of issues that are percolating out there that could be considered for a potential special session. And even if the Arkansas Works program doesn't get dealt with in the fiscal session, there is some suggestion that maybe a special session when some of these other senators are seated could be in the works. What's your position on wanting a special session maybe later on this year, whether it deals with Arkansas Works or something else?
Well, I don't desire a special session. The legislature is designed to meet every other year in general session, and the January session is a very short time away. But there's two criteria for having a special session. One is that there's an urgent matter that needs to be addressed. That can't wait till January. And then secondly, that there's a consensus around as to how to address that and answer the problem. And those are fairly two high hurdles to get over to have a special session. So I don't see an issue that's going to meet those two criteria, so I would be very doubtful about a special session.
Let me give you two topics that are certainly heating up here. Let's begin with this whole pharmacy reimbursement rate issue. The pharmacy benefits managers have changed their reimbursement rates. The pharmacists, as you have heard, and Attorney General Leslie Rutledge is now investigating, feel they're being shortchanged on some of these health insurance exchange plans. Is there a remedy that can be fashioned in the fiscal session for this, or how do you shore up that negativity there that the pharmacists are claiming when it doesn't really fit into a fiscal session?
Well, first of all, it is a great concern. I've met with the pharmacist. We've really worked hard to craft a solution to find out what the right path to get to a solution is. I know the independent pharmacists in some of the small towns in Arkansas are hurting and because of this, and so we're trying to get to the root of it. I know the Attorney General is engaged, our insurance department is engaged in it as well. I've met personally with carriers and with others involved with this, as well as the pharmacist. I've pushed toward a solution. We'll see if that can happen. A marketplace solution, I assure you, is much better than a legislative solution.
What would a marketplace solution look like to you?
Well, if you look at it simplistically, you've got on some pharmaceuticals, drugs that the pharmacists prescribe, they're being reimbursed at too low of a rate. Not for all of them, but for many of them. And so where is that coming from? It either is through the insurance company, or it's with the PBM, which is the middle person in there, or the pharmacist is just not buying it at the right price. I think the pharmacist is doing the best that they can in those circumstances. So I think you have to look at the agreement between the insurance company and the PBM, the middle person, and to see if there's too much profit being pulled out of that system. And I've asked them to meet, to look at that carefully, to see if that can't be adjusted to the benefit of the pharmacist.
Versus having to do something more heavy-handed from a government perspective.
Sure. Those are commercial contracts, and if we're going to invoke ourselves into it, it's complicated. Yep. It's hard to get it right.
Well, do you think going forward there has been some talk about maybe giving the insurance department more oversight or ability to regulate or investigate instances like this? I know it just seems to be the first time this has popped up, but PBMs have changed in their duties that they have provided and services that they've provided. So maybe we are entering a new area where there should be some additional regulation or oversight on that.
I'm sure that we'll be looking at a lot of different options. I have asked, and the insurance department is cooperating with the Attorney General, obviously, and asking them to broaden their inquiry into this. And so the AG has the lead in it, and that's really is a statutory assignment to her, and so we'll see how that plays out.
Going to let her lead. So let's talk about sovereign immunity. This cannot be dealt with in a special session, I don't think, unless through some miracle of the Constitution you can change it without a vote of the people. But this issue has come up from a big Supreme Court decision that basically says the state can't be sued. What is the guidance that you're giving state agencies to deal with that now? Do you think it's a blanket sovereign immunity applies across the board?
No. It should not be a blanket sovereign immunity across the board in non-monetary cases particularly. We have a claims commission that's set up that can handle monetary claims, but we need to have obviously relief for freedom of information lawsuits, for declaratory judgments, and I've asked my agencies, do not assert sovereign immunity without the approval of the governor's office. That way we can control it, make sure that citizens have access to the courts whenever it's appropriate. And so that's our first remedy. Whenever you look at the solution long term, one of the areas is tax cases, and the Supreme Court is considering this now. I directed my Department of Finance Administration to advise the court that as a policy matter in tax disputes, we want the citizens to have access to the courts. We believe that. I believe that's important. And so that has been communicated. I hope the Supreme Court draws the right line on this, and that we don't have to have a constitutional amendment or other remedies to make sure that the public has the protections that they need.
Do you think a constitutional amendment to clarify it, though, is the ultimate long-term solution, or because somebody might give different guidance if there is a different governor at some point in time?
Well, I mean, that's a good point. So I think we need to let the dust settle a little bit more. I think the Supreme Court's going to offer a clarification, and we'll see where that leads us. But a constitutional amendment is obviously one remedy, but also it can be through the Claims Commission. You look at legislative responses, we might have to beef up the Claims Commission so that they have the experience, the professionalism, and the staff needed to process what could be a larger number of claims that are filed. If they had to handle, I mean, you got to have relief on tax cases. Yep. And I think the best remedy is actually being able to take that case into court in appropriate circumstances.
They may need a little bigger budget too, so we'll have to see about that. All right, let's take another commercial break. We're going to talk politics with Governor Hutchinson, his re-election bid, and the bidding of Congress when we come back.
Authentic Arkansas abounds with creativity. Arts strengthen our economy, draw tourists, and improve academics. Through grants and funding opportunities, the Arkansas Arts Council is a driving force for the arts. Visit us and learn more at arkansasarts.org.
At Centennial Bank, our focus is on community, helping our friends and neighbors, building lasting relationships, working together, and supporting each other, doing our part to make life better in the communities we serve, and taking time to celebrate all that we love about the place we call home. Centennial Bank, our focus is on community.
You're born amazing, even if the pregnancy doesn't go as planned. When the Markham family's son was born nearly 4 months premature, the doctors and nurses at Baptist Health were there with the care he needed to survive. And together, they're helping to turn one of life's little miracles into a lifetime of happiness. Keep on thriving, keep on going, and keep on amazing. For amazing care before, during, and after childbirth, visit Baptist-Health.com.
Authentic Arkansas means music, history, art, politics, food, culture, nature, all waiting for you to enjoy. Travel our state. See what makes us special. We can't wait to show you. Visit us and learn more at arkansasheritage.com.
Welcome back to the program. We're with Governor Asa Hutchinson. All right, Governor, let's talk about politics in your re-election campaign. You have a primary challenger in Jan Morgan. She is prone to say a few things that need clarification from time to time. You have gone on the record disputing some of the things that she has said. One of the things being that you're not conservative enough. There has been some criticism from her and from some of her supporters that you have not done enough to shrink the size of government. Is that fair criticism?
Well, whenever you look at my career, for 40 years, I've been accused of a lot of things. I've never been accused of not being a conservative. I've been lambasted for being a conservative. I was a conservative before it was really the dominant political philosophy in Arkansas. And if you look at my record as governor, the fact that we're creating jobs in the private sector, we are reducing the number of employees in state government. We've reduced employees in state government by 1,000. That is a pretty good sign of restraining the growth of government. Whenever you look at tax cuts as a mark of a conservative, you can argue about fees and things, but the fact is $150 million reduction in our state income tax. We've led from a conservative fashion. Whenever you look at pro-life values, we've been recognized in Arkansas as the second leading state as a pro-life state. I've signed all the pro-life legislations that have come on my desk, so I think we have a good, strong record as a conservative. There's a lot of name calling that goes on in a campaign. We're ready for that. Not going to get bent out of shape about it, but I'm excited about the opportunity to defend our record.
I know one of the concerns that has been raised has been that the size, the dollar amount of state government has grown under your watch, which it has done in every governor's watch prior to that because the state's population does grow. And But there could be a case someone could make that you could cut more in the budget and do more in the budget.
Well, we're looking at that every day, and you know, if somebody can point out an area that we need to cut more, then we will sure take a look at it. In fact, we have you know, a transformation office that we've created to help transform government to be more efficient. We've got many ongoing initiatives, and the proof's in the pudding as to a hiring freeze and other things that have saved us money. But as you pointed out, we have a growing economy in our state. We've got growing population in our state. Education goes up every day, not every day, but every year really, based upon a constitutional mandate, and the legislature sets that. So that's something that really mandates an increase in expenditure to keep up with inflation. Public safety, I've had to put $50 million into prison facilities, and that costs money to do that. So I think you can ask the question back as to, you know, if you don't like where we're spending money, you know, you have to be able to say specifically where you're going to cut and whether it's going to be public safety, education, or health care.
Yeah. Let's turn our attention to Washington, D.C. I'm going to give you a chance to rail on Congress a little bit here. You served in Congress. You've seen what's gone on these last couple of months, particularly in the last couple of days and weeks, with government shutdowns and not government shutdowns, and this inability by both parties and the factions within their parties to be able to put something together that makes some sense. What is it going to take to get some maturity and professionalism back into Congress in a way that it functions like it's supposed to function? It's very frustrating as someone to watch it on the sidelines like I am.
Well, you've got to change the rules of Congress if you're going to make it more functional. And, you know, the public is the one that determines, you know, whether you have a divided Congress or what kind of majority that you have. The rules of the Senate have changed some to diminish that 60% rule, but my goodness, even with not having a 60% rule, we couldn't pass Graham Cassidy, which is repealing the old Obamacare. So I'm frustrated like everybody with what we see as dysfunction. I know that our congressional delegation is also frustrated. They're up there trying to work hard for Arkansans, and the environment up there makes it very, very difficult. I'd like to see them follow some of what we do in Arkansas. We get elected, we're partisans, we fight hard, but whenever we get in there, there's ways we find to work together, and that is something that Washington can learn. Even if
you change those rules, though, to make it a simple majority rule, for instance, in the Senate on a lot of things, you still have this divided government where they don't seem to be able to come together. You rarely see, you did in this budget deal, but you rarely see these 70 and 80 vote margins where there's a healthy number of Republicans and a healthy number of Democrats that agree on something. And I want your take on why you think it has to be so partisan these days.
Well, it doesn't have to be, and it shouldn't be, but we have a system in place right now that we're a divided country, and the media is part of that division. Whenever you have so much talk radio, talk television that drives us apart, and we give the radical wings of our parties more control and say so than they should have, it drives us away from the middle. And so we're not doing enough listening to each other, and that has to fundamentally change. You know, we worked on bipartisan issues, and it's always hard to get that, but we've got to be able to do better.
All right, real quickly, we got about 30 seconds here. President Trump, what kind of grade does he get at this juncture in his presidency? A, B, C, D, F?
You know, I quite frankly would probably give him on substance an A.
Okay.
On style, I might grade him down just a little bit.
Well, how far down?
But seriously, on what he's accomplished, particularly if we can get the immigration reform piece through, those are changes that are made that have been thorns in our side as a nation for decades.
Yeah. So you like the substance of what he's doing, but not the style of what he's doing.
That's right. I've always said we have a few differences on that.
All right, we're going to take a final commercial break, and I'm going to let the governor ask me a question or two because I've been grilling him for the last 20 minutes. So it's going to be your turn when we come back.
Authentic Arkansas abounds with creativity. Arts strengthen our economy, draw tourists, and improve academics. Through grants and funding opportunities, the Arkansas Arts Council is a driving force for the arts. Visit us and learn more at arkansasarts.org.
Circuits deliver power by making connections. At Entergy, we believe that works for people, too. The next generation is our connection to the future. So every year, Entergy invests millions of dollars in education to teach skills for better jobs, to build a brighter path. To us, making connections means more than electricity. It means fulfilling promise. And together, we power life. Entergy.
We're ready to lend, ready to lead, ready to help you get back to new ideas, big goals, planning for growth. At Bank of the Ozarks, we know success stories don't happen overnight. No matter where your business takes you or how big you grow, if you're ready to dream big again, we're ready to help.
You're born amazing, even if the pregnancy doesn't go as planned. When the Markham family's son was born nearly 4 months premature, the doctors and nurses at Baptist Health were there with the care he needed to survive. And together, they're helping to turn one of life's little miracles into a lifetime of happiness. Keep on thriving, keep on going, and keep on amazing. For amazing care before, during, and after childbirth, visit Baptist-Health.com.
Each day, the promise of our nation begins again. Arkansas and America moving forward. I help make that promise a reality. It's not for everyone, but people everywhere depend on us.
Oh, I love you too, sweetie.
Trucking delivers, or everything stops. And that's what drives me.
I did.
Authentic Arkansas means music, history, art, politics, food, culture, nature, all waiting for you to enjoy. Travel our state. See what makes us special. We can't wait to show you. Visit us and learn more at arkansasheritage.com.
Welcome back to the program. I'm with Governor Asa Hutchinson, and this is our last block in the show. I've asked you 3 blocks worth of questions. I'm going to give you the last 2.5 minutes. You get to ask any question you want of the reporter.
Well, this is a good occasion and an opportunity. Thanks, Roby. But with your business background, with the coverage that you provide on business and politics, let me ask you a question.
Oh, no.
We're looking, my focus is economic growth.
Mm-hmm.
My focus is creating jobs, driving the economy. What do you see as obstacles to even greater success in creating jobs and economic growth in this state? What do we need to do?
Well, I think workforce is the big key on that. I mean, every business leader that I talk to complains about needing better trained workers from a certain perspective. You and I talked about this a little bit in the 2014 campaign about whether or not we should have some sort of person that can cut through the red tape with some of our workforce efforts right there. And so perhaps that would be an area where I would say anything we could do to better align workforce education with the needs of employers out there. And I know there's a lot going on because I talk to those folks all the time.
Yeah, and I think the question is it a legislative issue? Is it an execution issue on workforce? Or is it a funding issue?
I don't think it's a funding issue. Every employer that I talk to says the money's there for this. And I think there's private money that would be there for it as well from folks that I talk to. So I think it's an execution issue. You got a lot of people that build a lot of consensus to make some of those changes. If you ask me today, who is the person in charge of workforce education, I could name you 3 or 4. And maybe you'd be the 4th one in that whole mix right there from the different agencies. But who's the one person that can cut through it all and make it happen?
This is my opportunity to ask you questions.
Yes. All right. Well, do you want me to run out the clock with you on my answer?
No.
Do you want me to pivot and answer a different question?
I'm
do you want me to be blunt?
I'm moving on
You
here.
got 30 seconds. Last question.
So, medical marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
Where's it going to be a year from now?
A year from now, you'll have it up and running, and it'll be producing some revenue for the state of Arkansas. And I think there will be some people that will be very pleased with the fact that it's helping them from a health benefits perspective.
Thank you for the opportunity.
All
Give
right.
me another chance down the
You got to
road.
ask some tougher questions than that for sure. Governor Asa Hutchinson has been our guest. Thank you so much, Governor. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. Jan Morgan, Jared Henderson, you're invited. Come on sometime. That is all for our program. I'm Roby Brock. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.